the genre we chose originally was a thriller, and we found it quite difficult to get that kind of genre across. So we decided to make it more of a cheesy kind of spoof thriller. So rather than terrify the audience, we had more of the idea of making them laugh, but at the same time having a serious story and something that kind of makes them jump and get some kind of oral noise out of them. So yeah, although the original genre was thriller, we decided it was going to be quite cheesy. Therefore, despite having the typical thriller close-ups, like of the stalker, played by Anna Wilde, despite having the close-ups of her face and her eyes in particular, we used cheesy music and the obvious ending of Mandy being killed to create more of a spoof feel rather than it being deadly serious. And the characters, Mandy and Ted, who are the two main characters, the couple you see at the start of the film, they're both quite cheesy. Kind of, they made me, watching them back and watching the film once it was completed, Mandy and Ted made me cringe quite a lot, especially when they were saying goodbye to each other at the door and Ted closed the door and did this really weird hand gesture, where he put his hand on his hip. It wasn't something we planned intentionally, it was something that the actor did, which kind of added to the whole feel of the film. And the way that Mandy, played by Lucy Finlater, the way she kind of acts and the way she seems so happy-go-lucky and carefree, especially when she's walking away from the house. She's kind of not walking, she's more flouncing away, which I found to be quite, I don't know, it was quite cheesy and rather it felt to me a bit more like a Butlins convention. So we did all that on purpose. We wanted the characters to be cheesy, we wanted them to make the audience cringe. Once again, to get more of the spoof theme across like they do in Scary Movie, where some of the characters are quite weird, and yeah, we wanted that for our characters too. So the events we had, we had the equilibrium disturbed by the murder of Mandy, which we were hoping would raise the questions in the mind of the viewer of what would happen to the stalker next, or would Ted be next, what would Ted's reaction be, and just generally where the film was going, because often a big event like that would happen midway through the film or at the end of a film, but we had it right at the start. I think it was more to draw the audience in because we had this picture of a very cheesy spoof film, and so to make it kind of a bit slow paced at the beginning seemed like it wouldn't really interest anyone, so we made it quite hard hitting from the word go. The iconography, we decided to make that not typical. Normally murders happen at midnight under a street lamp down an alley. Admittedly, we used the kind of alleyway idea, although it wasn't much of an alleyway, more of an arch. But otherwise it wasn't typical. It was daylight and it was in the middle of suburbia, not the kind of deserted field that people would see in a normal thriller, once again to enforce the kind of jokey, cheesy film we were trying to create. All of it was filmed in real time. The main shots used are the kind of shot reverse shots. There were a lot of close-ups used in the first kind of bit to build up the tension before the kind of real event happens, because you don't really understand what the stalker's doing watching the couple. I mean, you don't know if she's a jealous best friend or she could be the jealous ex-girlfriend, or you don't actually find that out with whether or not she's just a complete weirdo, really. Mandy seems kind of, as well at the same time, Mandy seems quite leery, I suppose, although she wouldn't be scared to pick a fight, which therefore could leave you wondering if she would fight back against the stalker, if there was some kind of fight before you see the shot of Mandy on the floor right at the end, or if she was actually dead, because she could have just hit her head and not actually been dead. So yeah. It is unclear as to whether Ted is a protagonist, although it was clear the stalker is the antagonist, because Ted might not do anything about it. Ted might not even bother to try and find out who actually did what happened to Mandy. So, that was that was something that we decided we were going to do to more kind of leave some more question in the viewer's mind as to want to watch the rest of the film. The opening sequence from peer analysis that can be seen on my blog shows that it does make the viewer want to watch the rest of the film. Another film it could be compared to is Saw 3 for the kind of, we used, I mean obviously it wasn't real blood, but we had a bit of gore within the first few minutes which could make the viewer want to watch more. The style, as I've mentioned throughout this whole clip, is the film is cheesy. It's not meant to be deadly serious, although it's still looking for some kind of shock from the viewer. The soundtrack's clearly made to take away from some of the suspense and force through the cheese factor, similar to Scary Movie's cheesiness.